Hey everyone, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. Russia just got invaded once again, and it got invaded by the, well, Russians. But this time it's the Russians that are trying to resist Putin's regime, the Russians that are fighting for the Ukrainian side. You might call them like a actual Russian opposition, or the Russian opposition that actually does something more useful than anyone else. What happened is on the March of 12th, the invasion started to be noticed on the Russian Telegram channels and the media, and it happened on three major directions, which happened over here in the area of Shebekino, over here around the area of Graivoron, and actually right over here at the north around the area of Sumy. Or Tyotkino is also referred to. So these three major incursion points is also where the three major groups of these Russians are operating. There is actually a fourth one, but it's a relatively smaller one. So the big three ones are Legion for Free Russia, which are like more pro-democratic fighters that want to have and see Russia more democratic. There is a Siberian Legion, which fights to make Siberia more autonomous or independent as a region. Then there is the Russian Volunteer Corps, which is the far-right Nazi sympathizers that want to build like a small nationalistic Russia that essentially wants to de-imperialize Russia and make it a small nationalistic country. And the fourth also group was the Ichkerian fighters, which are fighting to free Chechnya from the rule of Kadyrov and basically tore down the Putin's regime. These are the four groups that made an incursion towards the territory of Russia. The first day was weird because on the first day the incursion happened. There was definitely media news around it. However, there was little to no actual evidence of anything happening. The only thing that we got was claims from the Russian opposition side, where they claimed that they incurred deep into the Russian territory, that Belgorod should prepare itself, that they are coming to liberate Russia. And then on the Russian side, they've claimed that no, everything was stopped. There's already like hundreds of corpses layered all around the territory around the border of Russia. There is already multiple Bradleys destroyed, tens of vehicles blown up, and that's about it. So from first time day, we only heard claims with very little to no evidence. On the second day, the fighting still was reporting, so definitely the Russian side was not reporting everything accurately. I know, shocker, right? Russia lies. But what we did finally see is certain evidence. Most notably, the Russian opposition actually posted videos of Russian equipment being destroyed by the drones. On the Russian side, they also showed a couple of videos where there was certain equipment destroyed from the Russian opposition side. And they've started making, oh my God, this is a proof that everything is now being destroyed. We're now going to destroy the incursion and so on. But we also had, during the second day, some statements from the Legion of Free Russia, from the Russian Volunteer Corps, where they explained that this is the part of their activity to start and liberate Russia. They were still making big claims. But I think one of the most important messages that they did is that they said that they just want to go out and participate in elections, as you would expect, because this week is the elections of Putin that are happening in Russia. And now today we hear about some additional developments in the area. Right now there is a lot of noise about helicopter drop of the Ukrainian forces to Belgorod. This is a completely nonsensical thing, and what is reported, I'm just going to clear it up for you, this misinformation, is that the helicopters with Ukrainian ammunition or something, or medevac, were spotted around the area of Kozinka, which is literally on the border of Ukraine. So they didn't drop any troopers to Belgorod, nothing like this. Deep State map shows pretty well where the action is. It's these three areas over here. You can just check it out for yourself. But what happened? So what's the story? Now there's also more videos coming up from both sides, one side destroying the other. Good stuff. So this is what the, like, you know, my criticism for the Russian opposition, that there is not enough of them are fighting for Ukrainian side, that they are talking a lot but doing not as much. These four groups are the only ones that I would actually say that they are actually doing real job. The problem is the same that it has been before. There is just very, very few of them. If we put all of these units together, it maybe will reach a couple of thousand of troops max. And it's like, I think I'm really taking the high end over here. So it's very small number of actual units. I mean, yes, they're trained, they have some equipment, they have fought for Ukrainian side, so they got something for themselves to use. But still, it's a big diversion operation. We should not expect the collapse of the Russian regime or anything like this. I overall think that it's a good diversive operation. I don't think it really matters for Putin or anything like this, just because while there is a little bit of a chaos in the area of Belgorod and so on, and there is a Telegram channels that are following, in general, no one really cares. Until nothing is happening in Moscow, no one in Russia would even bother. So all in all, really good operation. I'm really happy what they're doing. I wish the Navalny's team would work with any of these guys to actually dedicate and give them more resources, funnel more people into their ranks and so on, so they would actually start a movement. But we do not see the support from the local Russian populations towards them. We see them incurring into the Russian territory, making a little bit of noise, but that's about it. So just take it as a feel-good story, but just don't blow it up out of the proportion. Great interest, great story. Let's move on. Now, a little bit more worrying story for me personally as I follow is the story about these helicopters. So, again, I have a lot of criticism on the pro-Ukrainian side, where people are taking specific events that are happening and then they're making a big deal out of it. They are saying, oh my God, have we learned nothing? Have we, don't we know how to find drones or anything like this? Why are we putting the helicopters here and not there? But in this story, there is a Russian drone that noticed the helicopters refueling some 50 kilometers from the front line. This is not very close to the front line. To show you the map, this is the place where it took place. And in general, what we do know is that after seeing those helicopters by the drone, relatively quickly, Russians have called in the artillery strike, where cluster munition warhead actually shot and damaged and destroyed some of these Ukrainian helicopters. Now, while I think that people that are critiquing Ukrainian side for, I don't know, refueling 50 kilometers from the front line as something supposedly stupid, I really don't see it this way. This is war, and Russia as an enemy, it is a formidable enemy. Like, we need to always remind ourselves that while Russian general command and just general doctrine is extremely stupid, that they have learned nowhere not good enough on how to effectively utilize the resources they have, they still adapt somewhat and they still have massive capabilities. There is not a single area of any equipment or resources where Ukraine would have an advantage over Russia. Not a single one. Russia has advantage in every single category of resources, especially when we're factoring in that Ukraine is not getting the resources it needs. So the fact that Russia is not winning harder is more to detriment on just how poorly Russia is doing it, not that Ukraine is doing a lot of things wrong. And Ukraine is forced to take a lot of risks if Russia needs to fight if Ukraine needs to fight Russia effectively with less resources. That's just how it is. So it's very nice when those risks pay off, but when Russians are adapting and they're able to expose those risks, then at that moment we will see that situation is not going to be developing favorable. It's war. It is a two-side battle. So I advise everyone that is watching this channel, please don't rage up on the individual things that are happening on the front line, especially not about losing certain equipment. All equipment can be lost. What we need to understand here, especially in this one, is two things. First one, most notably what reported by Russian Telegram channels, is that Russians supposedly knew about this refueling position. So either they got intelligence on where the Ukrainian helicopters are refueling, or they have been monitoring extensively where those positions are. Or maybe they did something else. For example, they noticed refueling trucks and they monitored these refueling trucks leaving the refueling facility. You know, there is a lot of things about how the drones, the Russian drones, can penetrate this far. This is not new. Ukrainians are running low on ammunition to shut down a lot of drones, and they are now trying to dedicate a lot of electronic warfare stuff to fight the drones. And a lot of parts of the front line, I know for sure, are covered mostly by electronic warfare stuff, because Ukraine just doesn't have the resource to shut everything down. But Russians are also adapting. A lot of newer drones, especially these surveillance drones, once they've been opened up, they actually have new electronic warfare protection kits installed in them. This is also something that's been discovered in the latest Shahed drones. So Russians are also adapting somewhat. We must never discard that Russians will be adapting. The fact that Russia has so much equipment, it means that it buys them a lot of time to do a lot of errors, to, even with slower adoption rate than Ukrainians, still learn from it. And the second major problems that we see with this video is that after this video was kind of spotted, the strike came in relatively quickly. And this is not the first video I see about like this. So after Russian drone have noticed a target, beforehand, the strike would come in maybe a couple of hours after, because of the chain of command. They have refined their chain of command a little bit, and now the strike actually came in half an hour after this drone spotted these helicopters. So all in all, Russians have adapted and created a new striking chains where they can observe the target and they can see that target struck, which is really bad for Ukrainians, and they will definitely need to consider how to fight this. This is a new problem, and it's a developing problem, and we will see a lot more footage of Russians striking sensitive Ukrainian equipment. But if we're talking about striking things with other things, and we're talking about something massive, then I want to say big thanks to Czechia, and especially President Petr Pavel and everything. Czechia is hitting well above its weight, because not only they were able to find 800,000 shells that can be sent to Ukraine to help Ukraine get additional influx of these shells, they're now coming back and saying there is 200,000 more shells. And they were able to build a coalition. They were able to get this done. I cannot stress it enough just how amazing it is to have people that go above and beyond what they can. Czechia, not the biggest country in Europe, not the hardest developing country, and so on, but amazing work, incredible work. And I mentioned a couple of videos ago that there is already ammunition coming into Ukrainian front lines. And yeah, I misrepresented it, saying that the ammunition that has been already ordered is coming into Ukraine, whereas now stating that it's going to just come in June. Okay, so the problem of Ukrainian ammunition was not that there was no ammunition just physically. There were still stocks of ammunition. It's just because Ukraine didn't know when they will get a new influx of ammunition. So they had to ratio the consumption of that ammunition a lot lower. So once the 800,000 package was agreed upon and understood, and Ukrainians understood that additional ammunition is going to come into Ukraine, they were much more willing to allow more ammunition from their existing storages to go to the front lines. That's why people on the front lines have reported that more ammunition started coming in. I hope this clears out a little bit. So huge props to Czechia, absolute Chad move, and I can only say good things. Let's go. Now, let's talk a little bit about US help that we all hopefully are still waiting for. And Johnson is playing delay tactics. So the big story is that Mike Johnson supposedly is now going to be proposing a bill that will go into Ukraine. And we don't know the details of that bill. And we see there is a hesitation to sign a discharge petition from the people on the Democratic and Republican side to support weapons for Ukraine. So this is delay tactics. Like, nothing this man has said has been in good faith for Ukraine. There was nothing in his actions that ever benefited Ukraine in a positive way. It was always delay, delude, and destroy. He's not a friend of Ukraine. Expecting that he will provide a package for Ukraine that will help Ukraine more than anything that was already negotiated by Senate is a little bit of a joke. Obviously, I think Ukraine will take anything there is, even if it's a loan, even if it's like anything like this, because loan, like, people rage out, oh my God, what about if it's going to be a loan to Ukraine? And you know what's a loan? It's a Lend-Lease program. The Lend-Lease program, the same that was happening during the Second World War to the Russian Federation. It doesn't matter if it's a loan. Like, if it gets to Ukraine, good. We can deal with how it's going to get paid up, whatever. I know morally it's not right, whatever, but it does not really matter. However, this man is a lying POS, so please be very careful when you consider if you can. There is going to be a link. I'll put a link to the list of people that are, for example, in Ukrainian caucus, and they have still not signed the discharge petition. Whatever, doesn't matter what this guy proposes, the discharge petitions should still be signed. So please, give a call to the representatives. I will link in below. And to finalize, let's talk about this general idea that Macron has proposed about sending troops to Ukraine. What we need to understand is we got absolutely gaslit. We have been so deluded by these pro-Russian narratives, the peacenik agenda that we had in Western countries, in Europe and so on, that whenever we think, oh my God, if there is any confrontation between NATO troops and Russia, that it would instantly trigger World War III, Putin will use nukes, whatever, yada, yada, yada. Absolute nonsense. There has been multiple times where US and NATO troops have clashed. US and NATO troops clashed with Russians, and Russians were obviously completely obliterated. But Ukraine is not Russia. Fighting in Ukraine with NATO troops would not do anything. We saw the pattern of Russians. They're just yapping their mouth, but Putin understands it very well, that Ukraine is not Russia. Nothing in Ukraine belongs to Russia. He's just taking the standard Soviet practices that you can just demand everything and just threaten everyone, and someone will cave. And what is happening right now is finally some realization that, yes, this is the tactic that he's playing. I know it's coming slow, but this is there. So all of the fears that, oh my God, if the NATO troops appear in Ukraine supporting Ukrainian side, firstly, no one is talking about them fighting. Like, they're talking about maybe training personnel. They're talking about maybe guarding the Polish border, stuff like that. But if it helps Ukraine, it's great. What I need to understand here is the principle that we need to start pushing back the dictator, that we cannot be driven by fear. And the sending of troops is a correct response if we see Ukraine failing. I don't think, and no one thinks, that it should be NATO troops. Okay, I think it should be moral for NATO to fly in completely closed skies over Ukraine. I think this should have been done on day one, because civilians have nothing to do with this. Even if we say, like, maybe like a little bit more, we could say is like, yes, but Russia is a threat to Ukraine and so on. But I can stand the legal material of maybe it's not our war and there are certain things. But there is nothing, again underscore, nothing wrong with our troops going into Ukraine. There is no part of Ukraine that belongs to Russia. Nada. Zero. Crimea is Ukraine. Donbass is Ukraine. Not a single piece of land belongs to Russia. It's an invasion of a sovereign nation in Europe, and it's the interest and security of Europe as its stake. So it is European security apparatus that needs to be engaged in order to stop this security threat, to make sure that the lives of citizens of the European Union and European continent in general are safer. Even Russians, when Putin is out, life in Russia will be safer. Sending troops is not about weakness, is not about starting the World War III. It's about ingraining security in the foundation of our continent. Period. Thank you so much for watching this, guys. Couple of days it was a little bit hard. I got some bad news from people that I know on the front lines. I had to get it over with, so I hope you will forgive me that. Slava Ukraini. I love you all, and I'll see you next time.